50. Half a century. The number itself felt weighty, substantial, a marker on the grand timeline of existence. I'd always approached birthdays with a certain pragmatic enthusiasm. Another year, another chapter, more experiences etched onto the tapestry of my life. This one, though, 50, felt different. It wasn't just another birthday, it was a milestone, a summit reached, a vantage point from which to survey the landscape of my past and chart the course for the future. And I was ready. I was more than ready. I was 50, and I felt, in many ways, like I was just getting started. The morning dawned crisp and clear, the kind of day that hinted at the vibrant hues of autumn just around the corner, yet still held onto the warmth of summer's lingering embrace. Sunlight streamed through the bedroom window, painting stripes of gold across the duvet. I stretched, feeling the familiar, yet still surprising, resilience of my body. 50 years, and it had carried me through triumphs and tribulations, through laughter and tears, through childbirth and marathons, through late nights and early mornings. It was a body that had earned its stripes, and I respected it, cherished it, even admired it. I glanced over at his side of the bed. Empty. Not unusual. Mark was an early riser, always had been. He was a man of routine, of schedules, of commitments. Reliable. Dependable. These were the words that had always defined him, the qualities that had drawn me to him, the bedrock upon which we had built our life together. Or so I thought. The scent of coffee wafted up from downstairs, a comforting aroma that promised the start of a good day. I swung my legs out of bed, the cool wooden floor a pleasant contrast to the warmth of the sheets. As I made my way to the bathroom, I caught sight of myself in the mirror. 50. Lines around my eyes. Yes, etched there by years of smiles and squinting into the sun. A few silver strands woven into the tapestry of my dark hair, subtle reminders of the passage of time. But my eyes were still the same. Clear, sharp, unwavering. They held a lifetime of stories, of experiences, of knowing. And they held a strength, a quiet confidence that had been forged in the fires of life. Downstairs, the kitchen was bathed in the soft morning light. The coffee machine gurgled contentedly, and a small vase of sunflowers sat on the kitchen island, their bright yellow faces turned towards the sun. A thoughtful touch. Mark, despite his sometimes rigid exterior, had his moments of unexpected tenderness. Morning, I said, entering the kitchen. He was standing at the counter, scrolling through his phone, dressed already in his work clothes, a crisp white shirt and tailored trousers. Efficient. Always efficient. Happy birthday, he said, glancing up briefly, his eyes meeting mine for a fleeting moment before returning to the screen. 50, huh? Big one. It is, I replied, pouring myself a cup of coffee. Feels significant. Yeah, well, he shrugged, still distracted by his phone. Big numbers always do, I guess. His lack of enthusiasm was underwhelming, disappointing, even. But I told myself not to read too much into it. Mark was not one for grand gestures or effusive displays of emotion. He showed his love in practical ways, in his reliability, in his unwavering presence. Or so I had always believed. So, I said, trying to inject some lightness into the conversation. Any exciting birthday plans for today? He finally put his phone down, turning to face me, a slightly harried expression on his face. Plans? Right. Work. Actually, big presentation this afternoon. Been prepping for it all week. Work. Of course. Work was always the answer. Work was his default setting, his go-to excuse, his ever-present priority. But it was my 50th birthday. Surely, even work could take a backseat for one day? Oh, I said, trying to keep my voice neutral. On my birthday? Afraid so, he said, avoiding eye contact again, reaching for his briefcase. Unavoidable. Client deadline. You know how it is. Did I really know how it was? Or was I just accepting the narrative he had always presented, the story of the dedicated, indispensable professional who had to prioritize work above all else? Okay, I said, taking a sip of my coffee, the warmth doing little to dispel the sudden chill that had settled over me. Well, have a good day at work, then. You too, he said, grabbing his keys from the hook by the door. Enjoy your day. We'll celebrate properly this weekend, okay? Make it up to you. Sure, I said, my voice flat. This weekend. He was gone then, the door closing behind him with a soft click that echoed in the sudden silence of the kitchen. I stood there, coffee cup in hand, staring at the sunflowers, their bright cheerfulness now feeling almost mocking. This weekend, make it up to me. Empty promises, placeholder reassurances. The words felt hollow, devoid of sincerity. I told myself not to be dramatic, not to overreact. He had work. It was a big presentation. It was just one day. But a nagging unease had begun to settle in my stomach, a feeling that went beyond simple disappointment. It was a sense of wrongness. Something didn't quite add up. The day stretched ahead of me, long and empty. I had planned to spend it doing things I enjoyed, things that nourished my soul. A leisurely walk in the park, browsing in my favorite bookstore, lunch with friends, maybe a quiet evening at home with a good book and a glass of wine. All things I could still do, of course, but the joy had been leached out of them, replaced by a dull ache of disappointment and a persistent, unsettling suspicion. As the morning wore on, the unease grew stronger. I found myself unable to shake off the feeling that something was amiss. Mark's hurried departure, his lack of eye contact, his dismissive tone, it all felt off. He had never been the most demonstrative of men, but he had always been present, reliable, engaged. Today, he had been distant, detached, almost guilty. Guilty. The word flashed in my mind, sharp and unwelcome. Guilty of what? Of prioritizing work? Or of something else entirely? I tried to distract myself. I went for my walk in the park, the autumn air crisp and invigorating, the changing leaves a riot of color. But even the beauty of nature couldn't fully penetrate the wall of suspicion that had erected itself in my mind. My thoughts kept circling back to Mark, to his hurried departure, to his evasive demeanor. Lunch with my friends was equally unsatisfying. They were effusive in their birthday wishes, showering me with compliments and good cheer. But I found myself going through the motions, forcing smiles, making polite conversation, while my mind remained preoccupied, wrestling with the nagging feeling that something was wrong. By the time I returned home in the late afternoon, the suspicion had solidified into a certainty. He was lying. I knew it, deep down, in that intuitive place where gut feelings resided. But why? And what was he lying about? The thought gnawed at me, relentless and insistent. I paced the living room, restless and agitated. I needed to know. I needed to understand. I couldn't simply dismiss it, couldn't pretend it wasn't there. My intuition was rarely wrong, and right now, it was screaming at me that something was fundamentally wrong. And then, almost as if guided by some unseen force, my eyes fell on his briefcase, still sitting by the door where he had left it that morning. He never left his briefcase behind when he went to work. Never. It was his constant companion, his mobile office, his lifeline to his professional world. The fact that it was still here was unusual, very unusual. A surge of adrenaline coursed through me. This was it. This was the clue, the missing piece of the puzzle. He hadn't gone to work. He had lied, and the briefcase was the silent witness to his deception. With trembling hands, I reached for the briefcase, my heart pounding in my chest. I unzipped it, my fingers fumbling with the clasp. Inside, neatly organized, were his work papers, his laptop, his usual office paraphernalia. Nothing out of the ordinary, except for a small, slim envelope tucked into a side pocket, almost hidden from view. My fingers closed around it, pulling it out. It was a plain white envelope, unmarked, unaddressed. My name wasn't on it. His name wasn't on it. It was just there, waiting to be opened. With a deep breath, I tore open the envelope, my hands shaking so badly I could barely grip the paper inside. It was a receipt from a jewelry store, dated today, my birthday, and the itemized list. It was a woman's necklace, an expensive necklace. My breath caught in my throat. A necklace, for whom? Not for me. He hadn't given me a necklace this morning. He hadn't even mentioned a gift. He had rushed out the door, briefcase in hand, claiming he had a crucial presentation to prepare for. But the briefcase was still here, and the receipt for a woman's necklace was in my hand. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. He hadn't gone to work. He had lied about work. He had lied about the presentation. He had lied about everything. And he had bought a necklace for another woman. On my 50th birthday, the realization hit me like a physical blow, knocking the wind out of me, leaving me gasping for air. Betrayal. The word echoed in my mind, cold and sharp, slicing through the carefully constructed facade of our life together. Betrayal. On my 50th birthday, the ultimate insult, the ultimate act of disrespect. But as the initial shock began to subside, something else started to surface. Anger. Not a raging, uncontrolled anger, but a cold, simmering fury that coiled in my stomach and tightened in my chest. How dare he? How dare he lie to me, deceive me, betray me, especially on this day, this milestone day that was supposed to be about celebrating me, celebrating us? And then, beneath the anger, another feeling emerged. Clarity. Sharp, unwavering clarity. This was not about me being a victim. This was not about me feeling sorry for myself. This was about him, his weakness, his deceit, his lack of respect. And it was about me, my strength, my resilience, my unwavering self-worth. I was 50 years old. I had lived a full life. I had built a successful career. I had raised a wonderful family. I had navigated triumphs and tragedies. I had learned, I had grown, I had evolved, and I had no intention of spending the next chapter of my life with a man who was capable of such blatant dishonesty and disrespect. The anger solidified into resolve. This was not the end. This was a new beginning, a beginning that would be defined by my strength, my confidence, my unwavering commitment to myself. He thought he could lie to me, deceive me, get away with it. He thought I was weak, vulnerable, easily manipulated. He was wrong, so wrong. I picked up my phone, my hand now steady, my voice calm and clear as I dialed his number. It rang a few times before he answered, his voice sounding slightly breathless, slightly rushed. "Hello, Mark," I said, my voice even, devoid of emotion. "It's me." There was a pause, a moment of silence that stretched out between us, thick with unspoken tension. "Hi," he said, his voice hesitant, uncertain. "Everything okay?" "No," I said, my voice still calm, still steady. "Everything is not okay. You said you had work. You said you had a presentation, but your briefcase is here, and I just found a receipt in it, for a necklace, from a jewelry store, dated today." Another silence, a longer silence this time. I could almost hear him scrambling for excuses, for lies, for anything to deflect the truth. But there were no excuses left. No lies that could cover up the reality of his betrayal. He stammered, his voice faltering, losing its usual confident tone. "I can explain." "No," I interrupted him, my voice now firm, decisive. "There's nothing to explain. I know exactly what's going on, and I know exactly what I'm going to do." What are you going to do?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper now, the bravado completely gone. "I'm going to celebrate my 50th birthday," I said, my voice gaining strength with every word. "And then, I'm going to celebrate my new life. A life without you, because as of today, Mark, we're done." And with that, I hung up the phone, the sound of the dial tone ringing in my ear, a soundtrack to the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. I was 50 years old, and I was finally, truly, free. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to like and subscribe for daily uploads.